So in this chapter, it is AutoCAD 3D modeling tools. And in this first phase, we want to look at some of these basic commands and settings to get you jump started into drawing 3D shapes in AutoCAD. So as you look at the list in Blackboard, here it is, you're going to see that we're going to cover some basic things like a workspace. We're going to change some settings on the view cube. We're going to look at what view orientation is. These should be familiar to you because you've been inundated with them, but the top, bottom, left, front, right, and back, and then the south, east, west, northeast, and west isometrics. We're going to look at drawing some basic shapes in AutoCAD. And then we're going to look at what the visual style is. How does it appear? Does it appear 2D wireframe, or does it have some shading look into it? We're going to look at free orbit, how you can spin around in 3D with the mouse and spin around your object. And we're also going to look at how the zoom and pan works the same in 2D or in 3D. And so here's the AutoCAD screen. Now, by this time, you may or may not have updated your workspace. And what's that mean is some of you might have been adding the toolbars. And so you might have some toolbars over here. Some of you may have changed the quick access buttons down here below. You may have done some other customization. You might have I always have to change where my command line is. So I pull it with this way and I dock it down below. You may have done something like that. If you've done any of that, you've updated the workspace. And so if you want to keep those settings, then you need to save a workspace. And so let's save one together first. And so I'm going to move my mouse to the bottom right-hand corner down here at the drawing aids and find the little gear. So you see this little gear, if you hover long enough, it'll say workspace switching. If you click on the arrow next to it, you'll see that we're in drafting and annotation. Well, we're about to switch to the 3D modeling in a minute, but before you do, save a new workspace with any of your settings. If you've made no setting changes, you may not need to do this, but I have, and so I'm going to save it. And if you want to, you can save a new workspace. I'm going to click Save Current As. And then I get the opportunity to give a name. So I'm going to call mine 2D Workspace. That way I know that when I'm working in two-dimensional drafting, I can use this workspace and it has my settings, my toolbars, and whatever the case, okay? And so I'm going to hit Save. And now my command line will stay down here when I come back to this 2D workspace. My toolbars will stay there if I have any, and any other customization that I've done. Go down to your workspace setting and choose 3D modeling. Okay, choose 3D modeling and change workspaces. And now you're going to look at the top left of the ribbon. And you'll see that you have different 3D modeling tools. You can draw some basic shapes. You can, we're going to use some of these commands called extrude and loft and revolve. We're not going to use them all today, but you're going to use them as you go. This command, in my opinion, is the most helpful command when making 3D models from 2D objects. And then there's a ton of things right through here that I haven't used this very much, but you may later. We're going to use some editing commands. So just like we have 2D drawing commands and then 2D editing commands, we also have 3D modeling commands and 3D editing commands. And we'll look at some of these. You also have your draw command. So if you're used to using the ribbon, some of this is still here, but some of it has changed. So you got draw commands, you've got some modify commands. But if you're using the keyboard to type or whatever you're doing, then that still works the same. No need to change anything. You might just learn some of the shortcut keystrokes for some of the 3D modeling commands. And if we keep going over here, you're like, well, where'd my layers go? Usually they're right here. Well, if you come over here to the right, you've got your layer control over here still, but it just moved on you. And then the other thing that just completely went away was that, remember that distance command, that measure distance command? There is a way that maybe you can Google and go find it if you wanted to add that back over here. But in the meantime, you can just type DI for distance. That's the one I think we use the most, and hit enter. And then you can pick 2 points and it'll give you the distance between those. And if you're used to doing that, okay? And then on your own, you can go back and you can type in the menu bar, turn it on by typing 1, and then you can go back and choose tools, and then toolbars, AutoCAD, and then if you had those toolbars, now you can go in and you can add those back and get that all set up. And so if you make any edits to your workspace, then I would suggest coming down here, saving another workspace, and calling it 3D workspace. I'm going to change my command line, and then I'm going to save my updated workspace. So any changes you ever make, you need to update your workspace. But if you don't plan on making any, you don't have to do this at all, okay? But you may find yourself, what I do a lot of times, you may find yourself switching between workspaces depending on what you're doing. What I do is that when I'm in 3D modeling, I will be in this 3D modeling workspace, and then when I go to do my layout on my with my viewports and my dimensions and my title block and all that sort of thing, since I need dimensions, sometimes I'll go back to my 2D workspace. But I could also jump over here to annotate, and I still have my dimensioning tool. So it just depends on what you want to do. So that's what workspace is all about. So the next thing we want to look at and change is this view cube settings. In the upper right-hand corner of the drawing space, you should have a view cube. This is going to help you control where you're looking. This controls where you're looking, but first, right-click on the view cube, please. Anywhere on that view cube, right-click. You should get a short menu. If you'll come all the way down towards the bottom, right above Help, you'll see View Cube Settings. Select. In this dialog box, come down towards the bottom again and find Orient View Cubes to Current UCS. You want to unselect that. I'll explain in a minute what it does. But we want to unselect Orient View Cube to Current UCS. So I unchecked it, and now I'm going to choose OK. Now, I can't really show you what it did yet, but in a minute I will as we continue. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and take a look at some of these other settings called view orientation. Now, first of all, if we go over here to the upper left corner of the drawing area, we see this little button that says top. If you hover long enough, it says view controls. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to left click on that button that says top, and I should get this list. You've always been working on the top drawing plane, and you've always been looking at the top plane. And that's where we've been ever since you've started AutoCAD. There's going to be times when you need to maybe look at and draw on the bottom plane. You need to look at and draw on the left plane, and so on. And so if you would, click bottom. Now, when you click on bottom, this setting changes. Look down to the left at your user coordinate system icon. that took off the little square down here because the square means that your user coordinate system is um, in the real world setting. Remember when we did auxiliary views and we clicked on this and you could change it and you rotated it? We changed it from the real world into a different user coordinate setting. That's what we just did with the bottom. Now we're drawing on the bottom view. We're drawing on the bottom plane, and look at your view cube setting. It reflects that you're on the bottom plane. Okay? Go back over to the button, the view controls in the upper left-hand corner. Click on bottom. Now click on front. When you click on front, you're looking at the front plane and you would be drawing on the front plane. So please draw a regular circle. Draw a regular circle on your screen somewhere. It doesn't matter. And why don't you give it a 1-inch radius? So ours might look similar. They don't have to match identically. So we drew a circle, 1-inch radius, and we're on the front plane. Go back to your view controls. Click on front and change this to southeast isometric, please. Click the setting, southeast isometric. Now, you may notice a few things. Hopefully you notice a lot of things happen. First of all, you go, wait, this is now an iso circle. No, it's just a regular circle. We just changed where we're looking at it. Notice your user coordinate system icon. Remember when I showed you that XYZ with our fingers and our left hand? Now we're using that. And so we got XYZ, and we can see all 3 dimensions, hence 3-dimensional. You'll notice that if I start to draw another circle, and I click somewhere, well, let's go ahead and click on the same center point, how about? And I move my mouse, I'm drawing a regular circle, I've just changed where I'm looking. And so now I'm going to type in 0.5, enter. And so as you can see that, we're drawing on the front plane, looking from the southeast isometric, okay? Now let's continue. The next thing we want to look at under view orientation is what this view cube does. Click on the view cube, but click on front, please. Click on the front side of the view cube. Now, when you do, it changes where we're looking. It changes where we're looking. We're looking straight on at the front plane. And we're still drawing on the front plane because that says over here we're drawing on the front plane. If I go back to my view cube setting and I click the upper right corner right here on the view cube, you see that? Click it. Now I go back to that isometric view. I'm back to the isometric view. My drawing, I'm still drawing on the front plane because you can see it here. Look up the top middle of the screen. Ready? Right here. This controls where you're drawing. If you click this button and drop it down, this controls your user coordinate system. Click top from the list. Click the top. Now you'll notice that your grid changed if your grid is on. If it's not, no problem. You'll notice that the XYZ changed. Now draw another circle. Click somewhere on the screen. Now you're drawing on the top plane because we changed where we're drawing. Put in 1 inch as the radius and press enter. You've drawn another circle. It looks isometric, but we've drawn it on the top plane. Click front on the view cube. Click front on the view cube. When you do, we're looking at the front plane. We're looking at the front plane, But this tells us up here in the top middle, this UCS control, it says we're drawing on the top plane. Look at the circle that you just drew. It looks like a line segment because we're looking at the edge of it. That's because we're looking at the front plane, but this is on the top plane and it looks like a line segment. Not confusing at all, huh? But with the view controls, if you click over here on this upper left view control and you click top, it says that you're drawing on the top plane and you're looking at the top plane when you click this view control over here. If you click the view cube, this only changes where you're looking. So if I rotate it and I'm looking at the front plane, it changes only where I'm looking. And then in the top middle, this UCS, this only changes where you're drawing. So click on left. And now if you draw a circle and you click, it looks like you're drawing a line segment, but you're really drawing a circle on the left plane while looking at the front plane, 1 inch for the radius. And so this shows you how you can control where you're looking and where you're drawing. Okay. So the next few settings, let's take a look. And so in order to draw some basic shapes, so would you go back to your view control and click over here on the upper left, please click top and then click top again, but change it to southeast isometric. Now, when we choose any of the isometric views over here, it only changes where we're looking. It doesn't change where we're drawing. So we're still drawing on the top plane, but it changes to an isometric view. And so I wanted you to set it to this. So now we're going to go in and draw some basic shapes. So would you go up to the top left of the ribbon and find where it reads box? And you can see the little box icon. Click on box, move your mouse into the drawing area, and then click somewhere. Notice you can either click or you can type in some numbers, but I'm just going to click. And that defined the base of the box. And now if you move your mouse upwards or downwards, it's going to ask you for the Z dimension. And so it's going to ask you for the height. You can either type in the height or you can just pick, do what you want to. And now you've drawn a solid 3D box. You can hover or click on that box and you can see some different grips, how you can control and edit this if you needed to. You can click some of the grips and you can change the size of it. And you can change the size of the base. Okay. All right. Let's draw another shape, a cylinder. You're going to get to practice this on your own in just a moment, but let's draw a cylinder. It says specify the center point of the base of the cylinder. Pick somewhere. Move your mouse. It's just like drawing a circle. You can either specify the radius or you can specify the diameter by switching to the diameter input. But I'm just going to click again, and I'm going to move my mouse upwards and define the height or type, and click or type. Now you've got a cylinder. So in a little bit, when I finish this demonstration, you can go back and practice all of these. But for now, just know that there's a lot of other ones that you can practice and use. Let's look at the visual style. Now, the visual style controls what this what this environment looks like and how our 3D shapes look. You can control the visual style by clicking over here by the view controls. You can left click, and you can see you have several different controls. You have conceptual, which will make it look like that. But now you can really see that, oh, you have a solid model in your space. You can also change the visual style by clicking just up here in the upper middle part of the ribbon. You'll see it's set to conceptual. But if you pull this down, you get a little preview of what the visual style is going to show and how it's going to show your objects in 3D. So you can also go through and click on some of these and find the one that you like. Okay. So click on one of them, and then I'm going to move forward. Then you can practice more of that later. The next one in the list on Blackboard is free orbit. And so zoom and pan work the same. If you just zoom in and out, it works the same. Double clicking the wheel will zoom extents. And then the free orbit works this way. If you hold down the shift with your non-mouse hand and then hold down the wheel on the mouse, just push and hold the wheel. If you push those two down simultaneously, you get a little symbol for free orbit, and move the mouse around, and now you can freely orbit and change where you're looking at these objects. So you can freely orbit instead of locking in to front, top, left, or right, or one of the isometric views. And you can still zoom in and out, but you can orient yourself to where you can look on the bottom of these shapes. If you need to, you can zoom in, and then you can hold down shift and the wheel, and you can just move around. And that's how you're going to navigate with your zoom and pan and then your free orbit. You also have some of these tools over here on the right-hand side of the screen. Here you have zoom extents. If you click the down arrow, you've got a ton of different zoom options that you can play with as well. But we've been using the middle mouse button a lot by zooming in and out. You can also see right below or above it, you can see the pan, or you can click on this lower one. There's your free orbit or continuous orbit, but they're readily available with the shift button and then the middle mouse button if you want to do that, okay? All right, well, this completes phase one of going over some basic 3D modeling tools using AutoCAD. So I would just suggest to you that you take another 15, 20 minutes to go back through this list that's shown on Blackboard. Go back through this list, experiment, play around with it, draw some basic shapes in the area, draw the Taj Mahal in 3D if you want to, but just play around with it for the next several minutes and get comfortable with this. Update your workspace if you need to. And then I'll see you in the next phase two as we look at some more 3D modeling tools.